The Capital Toyota Sports Ticket, presented by Asphalt Armor with Hunter Newton and Warren Franklin, continues on 1430 KYK.
Returning now to the Friday afternoon edition of Sports Ticket, Mike Allegre here on KYKN, brought to you this segment by our friends down on Lancaster at Color Tile. Well, they call him many things, but the main thing we call him is the Dean of Portland Sports, and that is former sports writer from the Oregonian, several other newspapers, and he is just the man. If you want to talk to him about sports in Oregon, this is where I love to go, and certainly when I want to talk about Oregon State Beavers, I talk to Kerry Eggers. And Kerry, thanks for joining us today on the Sports Ticket. It's always great to have you on.
Glad to be on with you, Mike. Thank you.
There's been so much going on with the Oregon State Beavers that we could spend a half hour on that. We don't have a half hour, but probably primary is just in the past week and a half. Well, past week, they named a new athletic director who just happens to come from the Ohio State University, has some great background, has been at several universities, and I guess was really the top candidate all along. And that would be, of course, Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when President Murphy introduced him, she said he's from the OSU, and I was moved to almost say, isn't the OSU where he's at now? But let's hope that he'll rise to the occasion and be somebody that Oregon State can be proud of. You know, he's got a good background. He has a Northwest background, which is, I think, helpful. Was in Seattle for some time working for the Mariners, or working for the Seahawks. And I think he came across well. He's a well-spoken guy. He's going to get after a lot of things. One of the things he's going to have to get things in order in the fundraising. I think that's going to be his biggest challenge, and that's something that he's had some experience in. So, you know, I think it was a good hire. We'll see how it works out.
Well, Kevin Griffin is a young guy with a lot of new, more contemporary ideas, and I'm not being negative to anybody at Oregon State, but I think sometimes they have been left in the wake, perhaps the way things need to be done now to make for a better program. And I believe Kevin Griffin brings that in. The President Murphy, she recognized that, as did the search committee. What makes him special, do you think, Kerry?
Well, he's going to have to be a connector. There's a lot of disenchantment right now with the Oregon State athletic program from Beaver Nation, I think, and that's not all Scott Barnes' fault. I mean, Scott had a pretty rough situation to lose the conference and then have the transfer portal and NIL and revenue sharing all kind of dropped in his lap. I don't think he handled a lot of things very well, including the blueprint fiasco. But so, you know, I'm not sure what we're going to expect, what we expect. Kevin's got a couple of hires. He's going to hire a CEO and a COO, I think, and they need some help there. And then they need to have some success in football, Mike. They can't go 2-10 again this year. I don't think they will. The schedule will permit them to, you would hope at least be 500, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Well, one of the great things, even before Mr. Griffin got there, was some great hires in other sports, certainly with men's basketball, with football, the assistants that have come along, and on baseball took it into the first round, if you will, of the NCAAs, but then things happen. They don't get past Oregon. All of a sudden, I look at baseball, if we can switch to that, and that's Rich Dorman, 7-8 years as their pitching coach, was there for a long time, a part of the program that's kept it growing, and now he's taken a similar job down in Florida, and your freshman All-American pitcher goes with him.
You know, I'm a big fan of Rich Dorman. I think he's a great coach, and he did a wonderful job with the pitching staff. It always dims the view a little bit when, you know, you take a player that was so important to Oregon State's future with you. So I'm sorry to see that happen. You know, I kind of have mixed emotions about that on Rich's behalf, but, you know, good luck to him down there. You know, Mitch Canham needs to get going and get a pitching coach in there so he doesn't lose any other pitchers. I will say that I'm reluctant to call the two coaches, the football and basketball coach, great hires until we see what happens.
Yes, you're right.
It's certainly the way it looks, especially with Justin Joyner coming from Michigan, the national champion. They ought to be able to get some things done.
And with Justin Joyner has done nothing but fill his coaching coffers with some outstanding assistants, and I'm kind of partial to one of them. His name's Mike Plank, who is a Willamette two-sport athlete, has been down at USF for the last 5 or 6 seasons as their number one assistant. He is now, as I understand it, Justin Joyner's number one assistant, and they have recruited well, and they have gotten quite a bevy of ball players coming in already.
Well, they turned the roster completely over with one exception, Josiah Lake, and I just did a piece on him a couple of days ago.
Right.
What a fine young guy that guy is, and what a nice family. Lucky that his best player is going to be a returner, but you're right. Everybody else is new. The thing I like is 4 of those players. Now, some of those players have not played much, especially the big guys, and I think they're going to be hurting a little bit in the post area. But they've got 4 guys who were starters for, Division I programs. One kid from Buffalo, I don't know the name, but he averaged almost 20 points a game. So
right.
He's going to have them running, and he's going to have them trying to play good defense, but they want to score some points. So, they want to be exciting. They want to bring fans back. That's one of the problems that Wayne Tinkle had, Mike, in the last couple of years. The fans had just lost interest in the program. So maybe there'll be some renewed interest with Justin coming to the scene.
We're talking with the Dean of Portland Sports, Kerry Agers, and we're talking Beavers today here on the Sports Ticket, and primarily because of all the changes we've just discussed. Justin Joyner, but, Jamarcus at football, he's got himself a big, tall mountain to climb as well.
He does, and it's interesting, this Texas Tech situation with the quarterback leaving Texas Tech and applying for the supplemental draft in the NFL. I think that should quell the idea that they would not, play Texas Tech. He's not going to be playing for him, and even though Texas Tech did agree to take him back, and the judge ruled that, I wouldn't hold that against Texas Tech. I think that'll be a really important game for him, Mike. Up here, I would not expect it'll be the home opener. Jamarcus Shepard's first game at home, and they want to perform well. And if they could, be competitive in that game, they're going to lose those first 2 games, Houston and Texas Tech, and then after that, they should have pretty good chance all the way through.
Well, Kerry, don't you think when you bring a coach in that's never really been a head coach at a major program, or he's been an assistant at Alabama, at Washington, and other places, and has made an impact, he's got to bring a lot of that, what he learned along the way with him, and then transfer that to the Beaver program?
Certainly worked for Jonathan Smith, working for Chris Peterson, and then, before that, Mike Riley, and I think he used both of those gentlemen, some good, some bad, but he certainly had some great success in his first job as a head coach.
Are they going to have to realign athletics in many ways? I'm sure people will come and go. I have a good friend down there, Sarah, who works down in the promotions department. I hope she doesn't go, but then again, you never know. But I've heard nothing but good things from the 2 SIDs I've talked to down there about how the climate within athletics is now.
There's going to be some cuts. There's no question about that.
Right.
There's concern about scholarship cuts, and I know Chris Pendleton, for one, the wrestling coach, talked to me about, concern that, they can make some cuts in their budget, but they don't want to cut scholarships, and I think that's especially true also in baseball. They've gotten some help from revenue sharing, so you can have 11 scholarships. You can now have 34 scholarships
right.
in baseball. It was 11, and so they'll be at 11 scholarships, but they'll have some revenue sharing help that'll cover more scholarships. What would scholarships would be? I know that's a little confusing, but those are the kind of things that they're going to have to iron out, and it's not going to be easy. They're not going to be. The media rights package is so much less than it was in the old Pac-12. Yeah. It's just a different ballgame.
And one of the things he mentioned in his opening statement was they're going to rise to be part of the top of the Pac-12. They're going to have other teams they want the target on their back to be competitive in all sports, going for league championships, headed towards national titles, playing for the big trophies, if you will. That's his vision, and that's great vision.
Yeah, he did say that, and that's not going to be easy. You got Boise State football, you got Gonzaga in basketball. Baseball, they've got a decent chance to be up there. Women's basketball, a decent chance to be up there. But if you're talking about all sports, it's not going to be an easy transition.
And certainly, Scott Rueck is the mainstay down there. He is already, if you will, respectfully speaking, reloaded with a lot of good ball players. 2 recently from overseas, France and Ukraine, with some height and some shooting ability. I don't think that guy ever has a problem getting talented, nice, hardworking ladies into that program.
Well, the 2 that you mentioned, the gal from France, looks to me to be a good player. I always look at their stats, and she was a decent scorer for the national team and so on. The other one from Ukraine was a little used player at a junior college. Now she's 6'4", so I'm sure he's looking at her as a project. But the good thing about him is he didn't lose any of his good talent coming back from last year, and that's a credit to Scott, because he's not got as much NIL money as some other schools. And you recall that Elite 8 team from a couple of years ago lost everybody. So since then he's kind of fortified, and you're absolutely right. He's an excellent coach. He's done a great job with the program, and I'm hopeful that he'll be able to continue with that.
Talking with Kerry Eggers here on the Sports Ticket. Kerry, in the last few months, and especially in the last few weeks, we've lost some outstanding either Beavers or former Beavers or just people that were aligned with the program. And one of them I think of is the 3-year track coach way back in the late 70s who coached the likes of Joni Huntley and others who just passed away at the age of 82.
You're talking about Steve Simmons.
Yes, sir.
He was a nice guy. Did not do a very good job with the program, honestly. Sorry to hear of his passing, but he came in after Bernie Wagner left. Now, Bernie Wagner and Sam Bell were both outstanding coaches. They built that program, Mike, to where they were right on the level with Oregon. There was a 6-year period during the late 50s, early 60s, where Oregon State and Oregon would meet in duels twice a year, and the Beavers won 7 of those 12 duels when Bill Bowerman was a coach. People forget that. When Simmons came in, the things went downhill quickly. He only was there, I think, 4 years, and that was the last really I heard of it.
So I'm pretty much taking off what I read in the newspaper, but whatever Les wrote down there. And when we talk about the passing, before we get to what is on your website and your new book coming out, the death of a guy who I barely knew, but I knew him because his son played for Gordy James over at Willamette, and R.J. Edelman. That's the recent passing of head coach Rick Edelman, one of the nicest guys in the NBA and one of the nicest coaches I've ever met at that level.
Yeah, I did a long piece on my website about Rick with a lot of people, including his son David. And Rick was a special person and a tremendous coach. In my mind, the greatest coach in Blazer history, even though Jack Ramsey was there longer and won a title. But Rick's years were fantastic. It's a big loss for the community, and you could tell in the comments from the players and the people around him how much he meant to them.
Well, I did read your story on Rick. In fact, it's a nice little picture of you when you were sitting next to Paul Bucher and Terry Fry, and then John Lashway, who was an old friend of mine. I haven't seen him for years, the old PR director for the Blazers. Let's talk about your website, kerryeggers.com, but in particular, recent stories you've put up, but also you've got another great book that just came out.
Yeah, we just have a story on Josiah Lake, as I mentioned, talking to his family and Justin Joyner about him, and also Wayne Tinkle about him. So that's, and then the most recent one just posted last night was a story with Lonnie Jordan, the front man for War, the great band of the 70s. They're playing out over in Chinook Winds next month. Coming up, I'm efforting. I'm gonna get Sean Mannion tomorrow, the former Beaver quarterback. He's now the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. So exciting news for him, and exciting. He's moved up in the coaching chain very quickly. I'm efforting Ryan Krauser, who's going to throw at the Prefontaine Classic. Your track and field fans among your listeners know him as the world record holder in the shot put, the 3-time Olympian. And Ryan, I've known Ryan since his high school days, and I'm hopeful that he's supposed to get back to me, and we'll see if he does. Another one I'm working on is Drew Rasmussen, who is heading to his second All-Star game, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, a former Beaver. And then one more, Jarvis, a former Winterhawk, just won a Stanley Cup with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Wow.
So those are stories that we're working on for the next couple of weeks.
And tell us briefly about, if you can, Scrolls of a Sports Scribe, the best of Kerry Eggers. You told me 2-3 years ago you were working on this, and you finally got it done.
Yeah, it's a collection of my stories throughout the years. Mike, thanks for mentioning it. Yeah, if any of your readers is interested, I've got 120 stories. It's 2 volumes set, 260 story volumes, and there's no A and B, but they're all, I think they're all pretty good stories in both volumes. Just go to kerryeggers.com. Hit the store tab at the top of the homepage and fill out an order, and we'll get you a book right away.
Kerry, of course, Kerry, Eggers, EGGERS.com, KerryEggers.com. He is the Dean of Portland Sports. Look at all of the books that he's got below that. He's got Built the Shore, Bill Shanley, a great one on, of course, Jerome Kersey, Clyde Drexler's as a Civil War rivalry. I've had that. I've only read half of it. That is such a good read. It's just like I hear your voice. And I really want to say thanks, Kerry. You have a busy time. We're glad you joined us today, and we'll talk to you hopefully before football season. We just thank you for all your insight.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
Kerry Eggers at KerryEggers.com, the Dean of Portland Sports. And we'll be coming back here with Hunter and Warren here on the Sports Ticket on 1430 KYKN, where Salem is listening.